As I mentioned to you earlier, the presenters today are Stephen Holland. He's an instructional designer and faculty member with the University of Iowa and with Eastern Iowa Community College District. Beth Richter is an Associate Vice President in the Retention Solutions Division of Noah Levitz, and David Carson is an adjunct faculty member and advisor, and that's the role he'll be speaking to us from today at Muscatine Community College as part of the Eastern Iowa Community College District. They will give you more information about who they are during their presentation. So right now I'm turning this over to Steve Holland to take it over. I see your screen, you're good. Let me unmute you.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Sorry about that little whisper there. And we're good. Welcome, everybody. I wanted just to take a moment to definitely show my appreciation for Dr. Beth Richter and David Carson being part of the panel today. You'll hear from them very soon. I want to also mention that this project and others, one person cannot do it all. So their intellect, their skills, their creativity has been most helpful, as well as, and I know some of the people who are online represent various companies that have been active and working with me, such as SoftChalk, the Noah Levitz Company, Pearson, eCollege, Eastern Iowa Community Colleges, the Iowa Community College Online Consortium. So it's a lot of people behind the scenes working to help students succeed, and it is most appreciated. In the background there, you see what Steve has already done to introduce me. I've taught full-time for 25 years, recently have gone on to a part-time status there and continue to teach online, and I also have had the privilege of designing some courses now for the University of Iowa in the Continued Ed department. So what we're doing here is, what this is all about is early start construction, an option that we gave students with a very simple idea. Our students would sign up for a course in the fall that might start, in this case, August 27th, last fall. They sign up in the middle of April, and they sit, and they wait, and they sit, and they wait. And then again it happens in the fall. They sign up around Thanksgiving, they sit, and they wait, and then suddenly the class might, in our minds as teachers, suddenly appear the middle of January. But they've been waiting a long time, so we started an early start option to see if it would help retention and what kinds of things it might do to change the course design. We did this in the fall and the spring of last year. So very simply, the students were invited in June 16th for the fall course, and they were invited in November 22nd for the spring course that started January 22nd. They were asked to do several things. They were given some points for doing this. They were asked to complete an orientation. They were asked to participate in discussions, so I could see they knew how to do some of the tools that were in the LMS, in this case eCollege. They were connected to a counselor, and I slow there because that became a really important, and not just, hey, this is your counselor, but the counselor wrote to students, the counselor had information about the students, the counselor and the students engaged with that student's academic needs, which were provided in the next button down through the Noah Levitz College Student Inventory, a wonderful inventory process that the students told us what they feared, what they needed, what they had as questions, and those are the kinds of things that the counselor and I, as well, could pin a point upon. Usually would take maybe one or two items at a time. That's the most important things to the students, and I think they had great impact, particularly for those individual students. What I've been reading about lately is give the students their own individual path to success and show them how to follow it, and it becomes an important way forward for them to succeed. Of course, they should have the syllabus and schedule. I mean, that should come right away, and that was sent out to them several times during the summer. And they actually had a chance to start their first essay early. They do all this work, and they got to do their first essay early. Some of the students took advantage of that. You start early, you also got to finish early, which was more of a focus in the spring than in the fall. How SoftChalk helped? Well, I looked particularly at 3 units, or the orientation unit and the introduction unit. Now those are slightly different in that the orientation focused more on the tools of the LMS, in this case eCollege, how to use those tools. The introduction, although it included some of those tools, focus also on how to have success in this particular course, in this case, Composition 1. And I saw the need for a strong unit on the structure of the essay. In other words, one place for the students to go, one place for them to see all this information when they struggled. I could say, go to Unit 10, look at this page. You need some more help on the thesis, for example. And these were all created with SoftChalk lectures. Each of the lectures, in this case 10, plus one more for the orientation, were created through SoftChalk. I love SoftChalk. It's very helpful, very easy to use. Make a change. You can load all kinds of elements up with one process, and it's a time saver for me. Because the SoftChalk orientation was in place, I found that helped the students because, you know, for several weeks, in front of them was information about the course. In front of them was information about the LMS. They did not have to go outside the course. They didn't have to go search for other places to find answers to their questions. They always had one place to go. And I felt that that was a good thing for the students to have. And also, again, once they got done with the orientation, they got to do their first essay. And that became kind of an interesting way of seeing the motivated students really get off and learning. That changed also the way that this course had to be designed, but it wasn't a big problem. So it was important to provide a base unit, in this case an orientation unit, and also a structure unit so the students could have success. In that final unit, I talked about that 10 unit, that place to go to find out about what I thought was important with the process of the essay. There's two things we're talking about. Your step through the essay, the stages that you go through. Many of you who are out there as English teachers will recognize this is the process of the essay that we take students through: pre-writing, first draft, editing, rewriting, proofing, final draft. Get them through those stages. Insist they go through those stages, and that enhances their success, as well as the basic structures of any essay: thesis, construction, introduction, and so on. I'm sorry, conclusion and so on, not construction, but conclusion and so on. So this was important to me, and then sometimes I thought it was a little of an oversight in my part that it was deconstructed throughout the essay, the course before. Like we would talk about something such as a thesis in one unit and expect them to get it. No, they didn't get it. They had to find one place to go where it could be explained to them again. So how do we do? Well, this gives you a look at last fall's class with 3 weeks to go for the official date. August 6th, this was captured. Ignore this top button because this is me with minutes in the course. But this represents minutes in the course for then the 28 students that were signed up for the course. And just as a quick summary, 11 had been present in the course for an hour or more. Several had been in the course for multiple hours. You start doing some math here, and you can see that some were in the course for 3 hours, some were in the course for 5, 10. One student was extremely motivated, and she was in the course already for 26 hours. I had engaged 14 students in the discussion thread. One student had already completed her first narration essay, this one down here, and 18 students had completed the CSI, the student inventory, where they told us what they needed. Now, think about that as an instructor, that if you showed up in the classroom and all these students had already put that many minutes in the course, that's a very good thing. Of course, we wonder what happened to those 8 or 9 students who signed up and never did a darn thing. Well, some of them left the course because they were removed for non-payment, and then 9 more students came in, and then some of them left, and so on. So the early start option got slightly less applicable. But in one case, a student came in late. There was like no reason she should have succeeded by her indicators, and lo and behold, because we had this in place, she got busy and she succeeded. And David will talk about that student in a little bit. Now, this is some elements in the orientation. Remember, this is a little bit different from the introduction, but these are typical topics that you would have for an orientation. Again, one of the things that I have learned, at least I think is a good practice, is to put all these elements in one place as you can to help the students. In this case, very easy to do with SoftChalk. You can't do it on this screen because it's a PowerPoint presentation, but if it's live, if you roll the mouse over any of these topics, then something will pop up to help the students. For example, upper left-hand corner, the syllabus will pop up. In the couple below, the essay rubric that I use will pop up. And it could be video, could be an audio, but there's one place they can go to get information. And again, remember, this is all in front of the students for weeks ahead of the course. I offer that that's a very good thing. I got a little bit ahead of myself. That's my colleague Beth Richter, but I need to now move into the screen presentation that I'm going to do for getting into the SoftChalk lecture. So just need to change my screen a bit, and here we go. So I'm going to show you a few things in the SoftChalk lecture. Again, this is the introduction, and these tools are all very easy to place in SoftChalk. And again, one of the things I love about SoftChalk is that I can put these tools in place. I can add a new screen, and I can zip it up and send it right up to the e-college lectures that I'm putting together for the students. So it's a very quick way to present. Now, we're going to move forward here into some of the screens, not all of them, but I'll show you a few things. This is very typical of any first screen that the students will see using a verb-oriented approach. They're told what to do: review, read, run, look, view, etc. These are the elements that I'm asking them to talk to review. And I can look and see how much time in course the students are doing. I asked them for 2 hours. I always have to say that I would be happy if they all do 1, but most of them will give me 2. But if I see 6 or 7 minutes, I get after the students. I put them on report. I tell them that that's not good. They've got to get back in there and they've got to do the hard work. I'll email them. And I will be particularly fierce on that at the outset because I want them to get a good work habit set. And I think that's very important for their success, is get that work habit set. So we'll move on to another screen here, which I'll just show you some of the tools that SoftChalk has in place. And one of the things that I would have is, I'll show you in a minute, I have a common errors. I list the common errors that students will make, and I keep track of those. And that's part of my evaluation process. And that helps me to watch their growth from unit to unit. Now that's very easy. That's a pop-up window, and you just roll over this. You can hopefully see it's slightly bluer on your screen, but roll over it, and you can see that this window will pop up with a little definition. As the students progress, a very quick question, give them some feedback. Do they understand something? This has to do with the course design in this particular unit. They have to do 5 essays. They're all personal experiences. They are not allowed to use anything from the internet. They're not allowed to cite things. If they're going to do that, boy, they better get a hold of me beforehand, because I'm pretty hard on that. Now, other courses will take care of the research process, and I do know that in some course designs of Comp 1s, instructors will introduce students to the internet. So it's a little slightly different, but I keep after them on this kind of thing, that I want them to have success. I don't want them going to the internet in any way being tempted to cheat their way through the course. Up in front of you now is a video. I'm not going to run it, but this is a younger looking student probably, they're thinking, but you know, we go into high school quite often, so maybe not. But this is the topic is what I'm interested in, and it talks about the process of the essay. I show it to you here because it's a very nice way to visually show the students what you're going to talk about in other places in this process as well. And I always believe in putting a points to ponder window, something for the students that they have to have, you know, to think about as they watch something like this with the video. My point here also is it's very easy to embed a window or a video using SoftChalk. I believe in using as many graphics as I can. Remember, this is what would also show up in the orientation, but we use the eCollege's Smart Thinking group. It's a tutorial service. Every student that I coach has to have a rough draft sent to the tutors, and this tells them how to do that. So there's no excuses. 100%, everybody's in. If you don't do that step, I send it back, count it late. You don't advance. So this is very important to show them how to do that and where to place, and these graphics again are a quick way to get into that process and complete it. Again, there's places to go for extra help in this course. These windows show extra help opportunities. If you kind of follow me, that worksheet's right over here. You may wonder why they don't automatically go there. Well, you got to tell them because they may skip that unit. It's not on the roster, right? But sometimes they need more help, and sometimes they need help in locating things. And the students do go there. Terms like Dropbox may be understandable by the instructor, but it may not be understandable by that first-time student. So we show them how to do that, what graphics to use to go there. We show them where to get more help. Remember, many places, and I repeat these things over and over again, but if I clicked on this window, which I'm not going to do so it gets us out of it, but again, it's the same kind of thing in the form. It's the grammar worksheets that I'll pop in here, and where I'll pop it in is in the bottom of the screen. They can go to my own website, thehollandreport.com, or they can also find those worksheets at that site. So I'm trying to give them many opportunities for places to go look. Remember I talked about that individual study plan, the common errors. This is where I keep track of those common errors. Again, this is a hyperlink. It will take them to places that will show them in a table form a quick explanation of the introduction, should that be a problem that I'm identifying for the students. So all this is, like I said, very easy to do, and a quick change or two, and I do see things that have to be updated, so you avoid that thing called the link rot. I'm going to jump to 17 here to show you the screen 17. There's audios. These audios link out to what that site I gave you is the Holland Report. It's the place I house things. This one is talking to the students about plagiarism. They all know what plagiarism is until they commit it and suddenly they go stupid on it. These are widgets that get downloaded. Very easy to download, and SoftChalk has a tool that you can put a widget in. This just gives them another place to tell me what they know about something like plagiarism. If I see some problems, then I can email the students directly or give an extra session on it. And I'm going to come back to the last slide here. And SoftChalk has some nice learning objects here located for the students, a quick check link. And this is a matching game in this case. And this one, we put a couple together so that we discussed about. So the online tutors, I click on this. And what is this? Let me think about it. That is a quick, easy assessment. Oh, no, it's not. So I get this little X out of things. If I get one right here, let's see if I can quickly get one right. So the smart thinking, that's what I should have placed here, the smart thinking tutors. But since I got it wrong already, it's not going to give it to me. So let's try the ISP. Oh, I did it wrong again. Well, I'm not doing too well about it, so you'll have to sort of take my word for it. I kind of know what I'm doing, but I guess it's a little bit of nerves today, so even the instructor can get it incorrect. One last thing to mention is over here on the side are common handouts that I give the students, and I put it on every screen so that they don't have to hunt. I set a couple up here already for you. So in this case, they get an example of what they'll get back from the Smart Thinking tutors, and that's they'll explain to the students, here's the strength of your essay, the rough draft form. These are things that you have to do that we suggest you improve. And then if you can see that this slightly bold-faced appears, in place they'll give them examples of where they're having problems. They don't edit, they don't do that kind of thing for the students, but they do put it in place for them to show them how to improve. And then one more quick little handout is an assessment tool, or the rubric that I use, the basic foundation, telling the students how they will assess. So thank you to the Pearson Company and eCollege, because they have taken this one step further with me, which is a whole other presentation. But this kind of thing quickly identifies the problems each and every student is having individually, again, getting back on that path towards success. So I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Beth Richter, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve, and welcome, everyone. I just feel very privileged to be here. Working, as many of you, in the field of student success for over 26 years, and I'm just inspired by that age-old adage that the success of the students and the success of the institution are inseparable. And with that premise in mind, I work within the Retention Solutions Division of Noel Levitz. And then a few years ago, my longtime colleague, Steve Holland, invited me to join him in instruction through the Iowa Community College Online Consortium. And what I have thoroughly enjoyed is being able to apply principles of my day job to what I do on the evenings and weekends in the classroom, in the online virtual classroom, through the composition course, and then also a course on sensitivity to students with special needs. As we think about what Steve Holland has shared, I just want to acknowledge how my intrigue with your structural modifications that I know you work on each term to serve the students more effectively. And what I appreciate about this approach is the independence, I think, that it offers to the students. I know this independence, though, is coupled with support in the form of individualized attention and academic counseling. And toward that end, as we move to the next slide, you administered the College Student Inventory. The College Student Inventory, and go ahead and progress that slide if you don't mind, Steve. The College Student Inventory is non-cognitive assessment wherein the students indicate their self-reported strengths and challenges as well as their receptivity to assistance. And in this manner, for those of you who are not familiar with the College Student Inventory, which is used by over 450 campuses, Steve, would you please advance the slide? Over 450 campuses administer the CSI each year to incoming students. Thank you so much. In order to cultivate a trusting relationship and engage those students in a deeper conversations with them, connecting them in a proactive manner with services that they need that will help them accomplish their goals, whether that's academic support or personal counseling or social enrichment, financial guidance, or career counseling. I like to look for patterns in the results from the non-cognitive assessment. Pattern might be low study habits but high sociability, and that just becomes an opportunity to guide the students toward balance, maybe referring them to special workshops on study skills and time management. Or maybe a student has a low desire to finish college, and that might be coupled with moderate to high scores on receptivity to career counseling. And recognizing this, you could take the opportunity to use career focus as a way to strengthen the student's commitment through the rigors of college. In the courses that we teach online, Steve Holland and I like to use Jane Bishop's individual game plan for success, where we ask the students to reflect upon 3 of their strengths and then reflect upon 3 challenges based on their student report. Also 3 resources that can help them succeed, as well as 3 strategies for success. So this is a very simple assignment, but it's generated some nice introspection and awareness of campus services that can help the student to accomplish his or her goals. And additionally, many colleagues that I work with will administer the post-test. We call it the mid-year student assessment, and that provides an opportunity for students and instructors to reflect upon the areas of growth, take heed of any setbacks, as well as gain a sense of reality as the student adjusts to the demands of college. In the fall term, I like to administer that post-test, that mid-year student assessment in early November, because then I can connect with at-risk students before the holidays and also set them on an action plan for second term. It's also helpful to me as an instructor to see where the student is in their reflections as they consider the growth of the first term. So not only at the individual level, but also at the programmatic and class level, and thanks, Steve, for moving us forward one more, you can discern patterns of strength and challenge and receptivity to assistance, as well as learning things such as the hours the student is working at the job, and also if they're first-generation students, as well as any custom questions that you've added to the assessment. Here we've displayed the aggregate summary and planning report for 2 early start classes. Go ahead and just forward that if you could. As we keep in mind that the 50th percentile is the norm, in the observed variables, we can see that the students have a lower desire to finish college for the male students and lower family emotional support for the full class overall. 2, as we look at the summary observation scales, we can see that these students are above the national norm in their predicted academic difficulty with a percentile rank of 63rd percentile, and coupling this with low receptivity to academic assistance at the 36th percentile. I think that speaks fully to our challenge as educators as we strive to help these students succeed. And fortunately, as opportunities, the students have a solid attitude towards their previous teachers, which serves us now that they're in college. And also, we see that they have a strong career orientation, and that can be used as motivation to further strengthen their commitment and focus on the rigors of college. Now, as we look at this screen here that's displaying, I consider these the observed variables. They're more straightforward. And we see some demographic data, as well as the realization that 46% of the students are working over 31 hours per week, and further, this is largely a first-generation population, and hence they would be without the framework for understanding the expectations of the college experience. All of this is helpful to me as an instructor to fine-tune curricula for emphases that add relevancy and focus to the instruction as I try to engage my online students in a meaningful interaction with each other and within the class and with myself. As good news on this screen, also in the right column, way over in the far right bottom, we can see that the students in this course have given thought about their enrollment in the college many months before, so that was encouraging news. And then on the next slide, as top recommendations for action, taking into consideration the students' non-cognitive needs and interests for this population, what kind of came to the top of the list is that they needed help with study, with exam skills, writing skills, and study habits. However, all of this data only takes on depth of meaning when it's used to truly help students, whether that's at the individual level or at the programmatic level. And at the really working closely one-on-one with students is my colleague Dave Carson, who's going to share some of his experiences. Dave?
Is this a place where we're going to put in the poll question, Steve?
Yes, I thought it was. So I'm going to bring the poll question up now about do you use non-cognitive assessment to support your student retention and college completion initiative? And part of this question, of course, is if you want more information about this topic, please check that as well. So we're a little slow in responding to this. We've got less than half of you responding, so if we can get a few more, because I don't want to slow things up. I think it's David's turn on the podium, so I want to make sure we get to him. Okay, most of you have responded, so I'm going to close the poll and share it. And you can see that but evenly divided between yes and no, and most of those, many of those asked for more information. So that information will be sent on. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Steve and David, and you can go forward.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Carson, and I serve as the Transition Advisor and Adjunct Faculty at Muscatine Community College and the Iowa Community College Online Consortium. In my 18 years at Muscatine Community College, I've had the privilege to serve students in many ways. Currently, I'm a Transition Advisor with my primary focus on student retention. I also serve as an adjunct faculty member teaching a first-year experience course called Transition to College and a decision-making course entitled Changes and Choices. Like Steve, I also use SoftChalk in my courses, and it has made my course preparation very easy. Today, my goal is to speak from a student perspective about how helpful the Early Start option and the College Student Inventory have been to both traditional and non-traditional students alike. Though our non-traditional student population is growing, the vast majority are still of the traditional college age of 18 to 23. This first student typifies what I'm seeing much of, students returning from unsuccessful attempts at college. More than not, students report their failure was caused by non-academic issues like the inability to manage competing obligations of life, and family, work, and personal relationships. But through the use of Steve's Early Start options, very stressed students are able to do a test run into a college course. And students numerous times have told me just how much their confidence is built and really appreciate Steve's willingness to engage with them in this short time. Now, the following information is based on the experience of a student that Steve had previously mentioned. Since the economic fallout of 2008, we've seen a significant rise in the number of non-traditional students. By non-traditional, I mean those 25 or older and generally out of an organized school setting for at least 7 to 15 years. Immersed in the cycle of underemployment, many of our non-traditional students make the decision to enter the college world just prior to the start of a semester. As such, they are not aware of what educators would term at-risk factors. It's not uncommon for non-traditional students to be the first in their family to attend college, so family support can be minimal. Unsuccessful students also can have the opportunity to have an inflated verbal and writing confidence. They find out quickly, though, that college requires a different set of skills, or at least a different use of them. Left to their own devices, many simply walk away believing a college degree is unattainable. I found the best way to address this reality is to use a tool like the CSI, which in part measures a student's attitude towards the college experience. The one measurement I use most is the receptivity to academic assistance. If a student is willing to ask for help, their chances for success increase dramatically. More importantly, though, is the helping the student see that someone believes in them. And I believe personally that the key to retention is connection. My role as both advisor and instructor is rooted in the Greek word parakaleo, which literally means to come alongside. My thanks to Steve and Beth for providing a setting for me to help our students on a daily basis. And with that now, I'll turn the program back over to Steve.
Thank you, David. So how did we do? Well, this is kind of an overview. It's kind of a little mixed message. We only had 2 classes, of course, but in the fall of 2012, 16 of the 24, if you withdrew along the way, finished the course. 13 with an A, which is quite significant given the challenges that many of them had to overcome. Again, I think it's very important to put them on their own path for success. Unfortunately, 8 did not pass. It's not success, but we always kind of wonder why, and this is kind of why we started this, was figure that out. Why aren't you involved? But then when you do that kind of things, those involved seem to really benefit. Of those 3, and this is part of the answer, they enroll within 4 days of the class start. So come in late, leave early, or never leave and never do anything. So in this case, this early start option would not apply. Again, the same kind of pattern was apparent in the spring option, early start option. 6 did not pass, but 17 of 23 did, 11 again with the A. So we got these motivated students up and going, moving at their own pace. That was a nice thing to see. One of the things to kind of keep in mind is that those students who left 4 to 8 weeks early, depending on their process. Of course, this meant a branch design process. You move through the course when you're ready, rather than lockstep, everybody going at the same pace. Those 6, 7, or 8 who didn't do anything left on their own accord, leaving me with 6, 7, or 8, or 9 students who like that linear approach, want that linear approach, and those are the ones that I finished with. But the others, had left the course, and that gave me more time to work with those students, some who had additional problems identified. So how the course was changed, besides the branch structure, and students were given control of their own, to work at their own pace. Those who needed more help, more time to work, got it more extensively. The orientation unit, I think, helped very much, and I think an overview of the essay structure helped also. And then we're going to have some final closing moments here with Beth, who's going to give us kind of a process of where to from here, because we think we've got some correlation onto what's going on with the students, which of course could all change, but this is what we know so far. So again, I'm going to ask Beth to come online, and this will be the final slide before we open it up for discussion.
Thanks so much, Steve. We really enjoyed kind of delving into the differences in the pattern of motivation as it relates to the college student inventory data for those who didn't pass the course and those who succeeded. And we observed these instructional points, namely, on the one hand, those who succeeded were more receptive to academic assistance. Now, they still weren't very receptive to academic assistance. It was simply a difference of the 34th percentile versus the 23rd percentile. However, it was enough for us to be able to work with them more closely, or I should say Steve and Dave to work with them more closely, and for them to be responsive. Apparently, as an indication of overconfidence and presumably not understanding the rigors of college, the students who did not pass the course had higher scores on the scales within the category of academic motivation. And yet, that did not play out. They did not pass the course. And so we think that this speaks to the importance of really counseling students regarding what is needed academically with study habits, effort, and focus to accomplish their career goals and really ground them in what's going to be needed. We noticed that the students had strong career closure, and so what we're hoping to do is use that strong emphasis on career under implications here on this slide we're seeing, and apply that then to what's really needed academically in a very concrete way. And this is where this model here of Steve as the instructor and Dave as the academic counselor, I think, is ideal in the sense of really connecting them with that counseling and support to have this take form in a tangible way and then really reap dividends, if you will, in the classroom as they gain that focus. Steve?
I guess that's to you, Steve, for perhaps some results from the poll and opening it up to discussion.
Okay, we've got a lot of sorry, Beth?
I was just, Steve Holland earlier, in some you had shared, and I'll just read your words, that we're seeing correlations in that the students succeed when a learning path is created just for them and when attention is given to their own personal issues and when they understand the reality of what they must do to have success. And then you also had commented that you thought the attention given through counselors as well as with the college student inventory as a tool for instructional engagement and academic counseling is a good extension of the time for learning.
And I totally agree with that. We don't have the numbers yet to make some things, but I totally agree with that. And thank you. Too many Steves in the soup, so I'll turn it over to you, Steve.
Okay, we've got some really interesting questions, so I'm glad we have a few moments to talk about this. One of the first questions that was asked just as you got started was, have you found the ability to create a learning community is hampered as people start at different times and move through in their own pace? Now, the other edge of the question about what happens with an early start program.
Yeah, and one of the things that changes is the discussion thread. And what I ended up doing was those who got moving faster, I just created a new group for those students. In other words, it's very easy to change the discussion thread group. I picked them pretty much randomly, actually by alphabets. I consider that a little bit random as they signed in. But as they progress, I put them where they were at that moment in the course. And I opened up the units earlier, and that allowed those students who to take a look at some of the materials as well earlier. They did. They went at their own. They went at their own progress. So that was a little bit of a change, but it wasn't certainly anything that was uncontrollable. The other little bit of a change was that I opened up the quizzes that I used earlier, but I use those as formative anyway. And so when the students were ready for them, I can set them in motion. There is an apparatus that you call, it's called Path, and you can set them on a path individually when they're ready, but to be honest, it's just a lot of management. I found this just as effective.
Okay, another interesting question from Lisa is, how does working on the course ahead of time impact their coursework in the preceding semester? I mean, if they're currently taking a class and now they're starting yours as part of a early start program. So, or does it? Does that make any difference?
Well, I think that's a really good question, and I think that's a question perhaps that's out there to as a challenge. I think what we're finding here, a bit of this previous design was set up in the classroom structure. They don't start until we say they're ready to start. So I think that when the students sign up, I believe they should be able to start the course pretty soon. I think that's going to happen more and more, but right now it's not really the setup. Has a lot to do with putting time in during the summer on students, and that's when the contracts say that's your free time as teachers and whatnot. A lot of motivated teachers out there, but there's a lot of issues to sort of take into account. Now I would like it to work with another instructor that says, okay, halfway through the course, these 15 have been available for the next step, and I think that the courses should be, there should be multiple entry points. But people out there working pretty hard, and that's things yet to get accomplished. It's a great question, though.
Question that came in is, how does starting a course early affect financial aid for students?
Very good question. They don't get the grade until the end of the semester, so I kind of hold back. To be honest, I hold back on the points given until after they are actually in the course. I mean, they don't get all the course all at once. So that's a really good question. Some of the things that happened was this little bit of a problem with the textbook. Some of them couldn't get their textbook early enough, so we try to make arrangements to get them a textbook if needed. But this course is pretty, you could do this course without the textbook, to be honest with you. So that's a really good question, and that's, again, things that have to be worked out in this process.
There's a quick question that occurred to me, and Virginia asked, is how do you do the minutes monitoring? You mentioned that you showed some data on that at the beginning in one of your
Yes.
slides, and you mentioned it as you went through the SoftChalk content.
eCollege has a tool in their gradebook activity log that allows me to look by date and by unit, and I can see how many times the students, many days in a row the students are there continuously or not, and I can see how much time they're putting into it. So I keep looking at that. It's nicely designed. It's all in a column, so that's a very easy thing to watch.
Right, and SoftChalk has software that can do that as well. They track how many people, and if you're using the SoftChalk Score Center, all that can move around and be used too. But that's another conversation. I also mentioned that Blackboard also has an activity log, so there's similar tools in different learning management systems. And let's see, there's something in here about is there a correlation between the CSI and the early start, early finish courses?
What do you think, Beth?
I think that we spent. I'm just pulling out we ran summary and planning reports, or little aggregate data. Steve Holland and I did, looking at the early starts and those who passed. And I'm just pulling those right now because we, just for the sake of the end count, looked more at those who passed versus those who did not pass. But the early starts versus those who passed, I'm just going to look at this real quick here, see if there's anything that stands out. Interesting. The early starts do have a higher intellectual interest score than the overall group that passed. Let me just see if there's something else that's notable. Otherwise, they're looking pretty comparable. Interesting. Let me see here. Okay, a little higher. The early starts have a little higher career closure. They're both high, 71st percentile for the early starts and 69th percentile for the overall group that passed. The early starts have a little stronger sense of financial security, a 57th percentile versus the 54th percentile for the whole group that passed. I'm curious about the receptivity scores because that's just always quite curious. Okay, interesting. The early starts, pretty close, are a little lower in their receptivity to career counseling. I dare say it's because they don't feel a need for it, because they've thought about that quite a bit. So nothing, no real strong differences between the overall past group and the early start past group, but we want to keep studying this. Steve's been studying learning outcomes management also, and so we kind of are engaged in ongoing research about these online classes. We'd love for you to join us if you find yourself walking comparable paths.
And we do see that receptivity, even though it's lower for both, but it's significantly higher for those who started earlier. And so we pushed hard on. Yeah, we pushed hard on that, and I think we're getting some good results back from the students. We just kind of think that's a function of what we're seeing in this process.
In the early starts I see compared to the others that passed, the early starts do report themselves having considerably above average perceived academic ability, 6% versus the 3 or 4% for the overall passed group.
And anyway, I have a question here which sort of approaches that issue from the other side, from the faculty member side. And it says, how much additional time beyond the normal times associated with the typical course are faculty members spending with this early start option?
That's a great question, and it comes up, and I'll be honest, at the outset, there's more time. And there's other things that we're doing too. We're pulling demographics that have available in the Eastern Iowa Community College District. Take a look at the students where they're at. It takes more time at the outset. During the summer, I was working on it quite a bit. But as the semester moves along, and remember, those students who are having success, they're leaving the course early, and you're left with fewer and fewer students. So at the tail end of the course, it's less and less time, and you're almost a little lonely at time or two, to tell you the truth. But I think that's worthwhile. So.
And Steve, there's a question here, and I think you've actually done this. The question is, can you see the potential to implement the early start in courses that are still taught on campus but have a strong online component, meaning the early start is online for in face-to-face classes?
Yes, I think and eCollege has an option. It's called eCompanion. They also have an option with a blended approach, and those are sort of contract things they'd have to work out. But again, remember what I was seeing is that these students were coming into the class with all that amount of time having orientated themselves. One of the things I didn't share in the presentation was within the first week of both courses, a fourth of the students, 6 or 7, had already turned in their first essay. Pretty major accomplishment to have done on their own the first week of the class. And that usually doesn't happen until weeks 3 or 4. So I think that the online tool can be brought into the classroom structure. And I think I would really encourage people to think about doing so, because it gives those students an opportunity to get settled and get into the course, and then you're off and running. And if you put that out there as an expectation, you expect them to do that, they will follow that. And of course, there'll be those that come in late and always be the issues, but you won't have as many problems. And that's one of the things also I want to emphasize. I noticed I've taught online for 12 years. I've taught in the classroom till 26, 27. But as I did the early start option, that first week of class, I did not have all these questions about how to use this tool, how to do this thing. I had very few of those, I should say, that in the past before. So the students were settled and they were ready to go. And I think that online can be done very effectively. Take those tools, why not take them and put them in the classroom?
And I think I have a quick question and a quick note. In one of your slides, you just said that students left early. Does that mean they dropped out or they finished early?
I'm sorry, I meant to emphasize they finished early. They got through their essays early. They have to have 5 essays. When they were done with one essay, I said, go on to the next one. It's open, it's waiting for you. So they were able to do that. Community college students especially, a lot of things happen with life. And by that I mean sometimes they can be on track and they drop off. So extending the time for them seems to be very helpful. And you're ready to go, so move on. You don't have to wait on somebody else to catch up.
Excellent. Well, I think we are about done with our Q&A. I think you've gone through most of the questions that we can handle right now. So let me close the session. I want to tell people a few things about SoftChalk, because one thing that you should know, because it was asked, as this webinar has been recorded. It is being recorded, so that will be available to you in an email you get tomorrow. But for those of you, especially those of you who are not too familiar with SoftChalk, we offer a variety of opportunities to learn more about SoftChalk Cloud on our website, and you can get a 30-day free subscription to SoftChalk Cloud and try it for yourself. There we've got a bunch of webinars, Innovators in Online Learning, which is what we are doing now. This is a continuing series to do 1 or 2 a month. Please come back to our website and see what we're doing, and just see what interesting work our users are doing. And we do have archives of all of them. So we've got dozens online, so you may find a topic that is particularly interesting to you, so give that a try. We have introductory webinars, and we will do private sessions. If you and your colleagues want to have a particular session and ask particular questions, please let us know. We have extensive training material available on our website as well. And of course, we have all kinds of social media, so I invite you to join us in those ways. So finally, I want to show you some contact information from all the speakers. Steve Holland, Beth Richter, and David Karsten are all delighted. If you want to contact them, let me say that in the email you get tomorrow will be their contact information for us, and a link to the archive as well. So all that information will be there in the email tomorrow.